Oh, you have to hold it right up to the mouth. One day we'll look back at this video and we'll be like, listen, there's a story. I had written a short piece that was kind of like the resurrection of between two lovers, and I had played with this idea and concept at Rattlestick Theatre in New York, and it was for something pretty queer that had to go out, and the reaction was very intense. It was a little bit different, but the piece. But people grabbed me and they were like, "What is this? Like this is so revelatory, and I hope there's more." And so I remembered that concept and some of the ideas of doing a magic show to save someone's life, which was in that first piece. But after He Who Shall Not Be Named was elected, the magician really came to me and spoke to me. And so I write, I'm the author of Rain and Zoe Save the World, which is happening in the UK next year. Spoilers, it's a video, but I didn't say where, so it's okay, you don't have to edit it. I'm book writer of Mary and Max, the musical, and a lot of pieces, but I have characters that very much, in stories that come to me, but this was different. It almost looked, it was like the black box of my mind, and the magician was there. I didn't know it was Kristen yet, and the magician started speaking. So those first lines, almost the first few minutes, just kind of came to me, and I just channeled it. And I realized who Kristen was, and I realized that Kristen was telling the story to Jenny, and I realized that what the story was, and so I just very much felt like the channeler of the story. And so I just kept working on it. And then over time, as I realized really it has a reverse Tinkerbell effect, I began to develop that with the actor and director of the New York version for about 3 years. So there was a lot of experimentation for how do you see magic when there is no magic, and how does an audience work in believing that and seeing that. And I had many panic moments where, just because when you work on theater, as we all know over time, someone will show up, and it's not a bad idea, it's just maybe, and honestly, it's good to explore them all, because then and someone was like, I don't know, I think it could be more fun. I think it would be more fun if we saw the magic, or something like that. And so I'd forgotten that I had sent the script to my friend in Vegas, who's a magician. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll put in the magic. And I was like, God, this is awful. It's like I just don't feel it, but I don't know. Maybe it'd seem funnier. I don't know. And then I get this call from my friend, Scott Hitchcock, the magician. And we also went to high school together, so that's kind of fun. And he calls me up and he literally says, oh my God, I'm crying. I'm crying. And I was like, wow, well, what I'm thinking about, someone said maybe I should put the magic back in. He goes, don't you dare. Don't you dare show us the magic. And I was like, okay, if a magician says, don't show the magic, I'm just going to take that advice. And so that kind of gave me a solid base to keep experimenting on what that meant. Because you see in the production, if you don't show anything or any like a sound effect or something, then we don't understand, and our imaginations don't get defined. So between the beautiful story of these women and Kristen and the act of transformation and using theater for that, there's a lot of interesting things in how the piece kind of unfolds. Yeah.
Wow. That was beautiful, thank you. And I know that I personally, this is a spoiler alert for very few people, but I brought the script initially to Tampa Rep because we were doing Every Brilliant Thing. It was something that we'd already planned on doing. We'd done it one time. And we were looking for a good companion piece that was going to sort of complement Every Brilliant Thing in a very specific way while also having shades of another type of storytelling. And they do sort of kind of feel like they live in a similar world of having a relationship with the audience, and it was just very important that we, to me, to be able to tell different types of stories and kind of different types of voices that spoke about things that were relevant, that we cared about, that sort of welcomed the audience back to the theater after the last year and a half that we had. And I think this direct address was something that was very specifically chosen, and I guess I was just kind of curious initially what yours, Kay, Fanny and Matt's thoughts were when we first read the script, some initial reactions to the material. But would you like to?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm interjecting. Well, I cried a lot the first time I read the script, and the second time, and the third time, and the third time. But really, that it was just such a genuine expression of love, grief, anger, passion, regret, all kinds of different things, all wrapped up into this one 36-page bear of a situation. But really, yeah, I mean, just how raw and open, LOL, the whole thing really was. Yeah, it was just so expressive. And yeah, that's really good.
You would think that I have a prepared answer. I do remember the first time that I did read this, and it was right after my cousin had died. And what this time, there were things, you work on things at a particular time in your life and they become gifts. And so for me, the journey that's in the script of the journey of grief toward joy is universal. The specificity is who's telling the story and the specifics of this story. And so it allowed me to move through the universal, which was grief and joy that I knew of, and it challenged me to stick to the specific. To stick to the specific. And each time I did weep. But what made me weep, the flowers, and there's a line that says, "You were never cautious." And every time I read that line, oh my God, okay, that's the word, right? It was just a word. It's on tape, though.
I always do that, and I'm like, I couldn't say something. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, but I know you're busy, so.
I didn't say shit, dang. And so that was what touched me. And I have to say that the first time I experienced Kay was like, oh.
Yeah, well, my answer is kind of different because I read the script first looking for magic. But what really struck me, and I think what's most important in telling a queer love story too, is like I felt magical when I kind of had my first high school love, and I felt like we had to escape sometimes, and the notes thing, my dad wrote to me on paper plates after I came out for like a whole year, and it was just really bizarre stuff, and like all of that in the world of illusion. And when I watch a magician and they can capture my suspense, but then they relieve me because I see the finish of the trick. All of that resonated with me living kind of my journey. So I think that's what I read, and then magic is such a clear way to tell that story. I think, that's what I got from it. And then of course, what tricks did he have to see? That was my initial reaction. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of pantomime tricks, but that's a different story.
Thank you all for passing my way. And I would just love to turn it over and see where the conversation goes if anybody has any specific questions. And if you don't, that's okay too. I'm not obligated. Hello.
Hi. First of all, I loved the play. It was beautiful. I guess that I had a couple of questions floating around. The first one is like, what initially drew you to the idea of using magic and pantomime magic? Was there something specific, or was that kind of just how did you come about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really strive in every piece. A couple of goals is that the art is active as an activist, so it has a purpose beyond just being theater or literature. And so part of that is the contract with the audience. So I do write in different mediums. I also write now for podcasts. This is actually, there is going to be a podcast following Kristen after the story as a YA author, and The Magician's Magician that has come out, and she's still working through her grief. And magic might end up being pretty real, that one too. So, each of the, and then I write for musicals as well, so which is, a different medium, and then I'm starting to do television. So each of those mediums, to me, the secret, and it's not just the storytelling, but how the story is told in those mediums that makes, sure, you can go get your big gulp in the middle of a film, but what makes you not do that, right? And what makes us as an audience not, of course we always think of our own lives too, but how does it make us not tune out and make us be invested in a live experience? So the line, this is a contract between you and I, that and how magic does that, and how magic asks investment, and you are starting to see things that aren't there, and but they were there, and love is love, and who you are and your identity, and is stronger than any hate, and is stronger than anything dismissive or not embracing of that. And so, I feel like magic is all about acceptance, and it's all about that, and it's all about don't look over here but look over here, but I'm also taking care of you. And so there's that kind of caretaker thing that I think is there with magic. There's one trick that's interesting that I always went back to that I was like, I still don't know how to do this, but I know this is the feeling, and every production gets it in their own way. And it's Penn and Teller, and it's the shadow and the rose, and it's completely wordless. And I always get their names wrong. Who's the one who doesn't talk? I always forget. It's that's Penn, right? No, Teller.
I don't know.
I think it's Teller. I should know. Yes, but he starts to cut a rose that's in a vase, and behind the shadow, it's how the shadow works with the physical object, and then there's this incredible payoff for. But it's very subtle, but it also moves story forward. And so even though there was no words in that, I just thought that's what I want to try to capture moment to moment, and then how do the tricks reflect back, like the numbers of the card. But that took a lot of overwriting and work and playing with everybody. But that's kind of where the idea came from in terms of it being a magic act and looking for that kind of investment. And it's scary. It's very scary to trust the audience, but why not? And I feel like, and the other, I love every brilliant thing too, because it also trusts the audience. And I think, when you come to the theater, that's what it's about. You don't want a story coming at you. You want to be a part of the story in some way. So that's where that idea came from. Thank you. Hello.
Would you like the microphone?
For a second, I thought you were going to hand it to me. Oh my goodness, little old me. I hope it's a good question. So along with the magic, I found that there are these whiplash, jump cuts from different emotions, that they were very enticing and easy to keep a person's attention. But I was curious about how you found the order to tell the story, because you found very nuanced taglines that would take Christine to the past or back to the present or whatever timeline we was in that moment. I guess that's does that make sense?
Well, I think part of the magic is a couple of things here. It is and what you guys marvelously did here as well, which is that, And I learned this as a book writer as well for musicals. So if anyone writes musicals, this is a good trick. Because it is a musical, and your composer's going to write too many songs, and they don't always move things forward. But at some point, that big 7-minute song that was about leaving each other, and it spawned like several years, could just be a stage direction with somebody packing a suitcase and then crossing the stage. So to come back to like how theater can work through language and images so quickly, and it is a language-based medium, so just based on the words that I say, you're seeing them. And so using that cut technique allowed me to go in between story-wise. The story did have the arc from the very beginning because I knew that she was telling the story to Jenny, and I knew that, but there was a moment in the original production where I realized that I maybe wasn't as clear, and I said to the director, I said, and it was interesting because we were a few days in rehearsal, and I said, it's very important that this isn't happening after Jenny's gone. This has to be completely live. And it felt that way, but there was something missing in the climax. And the order was kind of wrong of her trying the tricks and they didn't work. And that speech was not there originally of reminding us that she brought us here and reminding us that this is the whole point. And that's something that you guys really captured super well here was Kristen's, something that really got me in this production and between your direction and your acting was and dramaturgy supporting that was, she's laughing at these very sad moments, but it's because she's going to live. Like, this is ridiculous to even entertain. And to me, death feels that way. And I have a very interesting relationship with death. Like, I don't really believe that people are gone, and I know they're there, and like, so you're kind of working through all these things, but it's absurd, and so you really captured that she really believed, that this is going to work. So when it doesn't work and you have to come back to reality, how can you do that? And I guess in general, a lot of my work examines that because, like Kristen, I don't like reality at all. And it's very hard to be in a moment. I think both plays examine, that it's very hard to be in a moment and then move on from that moment. Like, how do you even know that another moment's going to happen? So I think in writing, I always try to, and I teach this way too. Your writing is to serve the goals. So the goals is that the live audience needs to believe that they tried very, very hard, just like the person did, but it didn't work. And then what happens? And how do you move on when it was no one, this is society's fault. This is the world's fault. This is those 3 people from that night fault. But those 3 people were conditioned in a place where terrible things happen and terrible things are said. And so I want the audience to leave thinking, what can I do? If I passed someone on the street and they were saying something that made me uncomfortable, what can I do? So I do think people love Jenny so much. I do believe that there is a lot of thought behind this, and I know there's some great panels that are going to happen with that as well, and grieving and these kinds of things. So we're in this together, and so I just, try to do that. But I'd love to ask a question too, like, how did it feel in these moments? It's totally okay, it's late. But how did it feel in the like? I loved your performance so much in those last few moments. Like, I just love to hear what you feel.
Just in those last moments specifically?
Yeah, with the sense of like, the reckoning. Like, you really, really believing this was going to work. Because that's another thing that was super, super important to get was the audience didn't fail. The point is that you believed and she believed, and it wasn't enough. But that's not because we weren't enough, if that makes sense. And that's just something, I really believe in the audience. I believe that I don't want them to go away thinking these are hopeless. Because they're really not. But we live through hopeless moments.
I think in Act 3, there's a lot of disappointment. It's a lot of building up, telling myself, Kristen telling Kristen's self that it's gonna work, it's gonna be okay. Look at everyone here, it's gonna be amazing, and we're gonna do this. And then, so I think it's just the floodgate of accepting what I always knew was going to happen happens, and so there's some relief, almost, and I don't know if that sounds insensitive, but there is relief because, you know, Kristen's working so hard to accomplish this thing that I think maybe deep down she isn't gonna happen. But in a way, also she does win, and she does succeed because Jenny dies physically, but she doesn't die, you know, spiritually. So I think there's a lot of things I can down that part, but I think there's a lot of relief in a strange way.
Your performance was incredible.
Well, if you'd like to ask Kay how they learned all those lines, you can ask them locally. But that is all the time that we have, and we appreciate you all joining us, and thank you so much. Once again, absolutely. Ava, did you have something you wanted to say, or can I just give you a wonderful shout out?
Shout out's great.
A shout out. So this is Ava Koob, and Ava designed the wonderful costume that Kay all wearing. It's incredible. I mean, the first time I saw it, I turned my head like this. But I also think that that's it. You can't take your eyes off of it. It's just this beautiful other thing that tells you so much about Kristen. So thank you so much for that beautiful.
Great. And we're on, let's see, I'm Crystal Skillman everywhere, but the Open the Play is Open the Play at Twitter and Insta. And I was posting about the show, and I can't even tell you how many comments came in about the costume. And just, I mean, like, what's it? Oh my God! So, and to see it in live, you know, it's very organic too, and how it works with her. Like, it tells you so many things about Kristen. So it's really incredible. It's great.
Thank you so much, and you guys have a great night. Thank you.